Shalom to you from oneforisrael.org. This week's Torah portion is called Ta즈riah, which is usually translated as She Bears Seed. It is found in chapters 12 and 13 of the book of Leviticus. This is a difficult section, and chances are you have not heard much teaching about this in your local congregation. It covers issues such as personal hygiene, cleanliness, and skin diseases. There are actually a variety of skin diseases, and those who were afflicted were sent to the priests for an examination. It was a question of being either clean or unclean. There's virtually no area of life that is not covered in the law of Moses. Even personal and private issues are subject to God's reign. This is spelled out explicitly in this passage, and parts of it may be difficult to read. God wants to be Lord over our whole lives. To the ancient Israelites, physical health was at least a metaphor for spiritual well-being, and often the two were more directly linked. This certainly does not mean that all illnesses are the result of sin. That is not the point. Ultimately, these issues are concerned with fellowship with God and His people. Leviticus chapter 13, verse 46 says, "He shall remain unclean as long as he has the disease. He is unclean. He shall live alone. His dwelling shall be outside the camp." God always provided a way for us to be made clean, but we need to have the proper understanding of who He is. We need to recognize that He wants us to be clean and whole. And in His plan, even those who are outside the camp are not beyond recovery. This reminds me of a passage in Luke 17, verses 11 through 19. Yeshua healed 10 people who were outside the camp, but only one of them understood and appreciated what happened. We read, "On the way to Jerusalem, he was passing along between Samaria and Galilee. And as he entered a village, he was met by 10 lepers, who stood at a distance, lifted up their voices, saying, 'Jesus, Master, have mercy on us.' When he saw them, he said to them, 'Go and show yourselves to the priests.' And as they went, they were cleansed. Then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice, and he fell on his face at Jesus' feet, giving him thanks. Now he was a Samaritan. Then Jesus answered, 'Were not 10 cleansed? Where are the 9? Was no one found to return and give praise to God except this foreigner?' And he said to him, 'Rise and go your way. Your faith has made you well.'" For most of the world today, leprosy is not the problem it once was. But there are still many ways to be unclean in God's sight. This is the whole reason why Yeshua came, to cleanse our hearts. The lepers in Luke 17 knew they were lepers. It was an undeniable fact. They readily received the gift of being healed, but most of them did not acknowledge the healer. The one who did was a Samaritan, a hated rival of the Jewish people. After receiving the healing, he rejoiced in knowing the one who healed him. Our prayer is that more and more people from around the world, both from Israel and the nations, will recognize their own spiritual leprosy, or as it's usually called, sin, and that they may seek healing from the great physician. Please join us next week for another edition of 5 Alive, wishing you God's shalom from oneforisrael.org. And don't forget to share.
Our ministry, One for Israel, is an initiative of native-born Israelis on the forefront of media and high-tech evangelism, boldly proclaiming salvation to Israel. Raising up leaders and equipping them with the tools they need to transform our communities. We also provide humanitarian aid to Holocaust survivors with the love of Yeshua. Join us as we share the gospel in Israel. Become One for Israel.